They say fame changes people, but they never warn you how quickly it can strip you bare. I was just 14, and I had the kind of life most teenagers could only dream of. My YouTube channel was exploding, not just growing, but detonating in the algorithm. I had over 2 million subscribers, more money flooding in every month than most adults I knew made in a year. Some months I cleared over $50,000, and yet I didn't grow up rich. We weren't poor either, but money had always been a stressor in my family. Suddenly, I was the one lifting that weight, or at least I thought I was. My channel revolved around video games, but by then, I wasn't just some kid uploading clips. I had fans, deep connections with other creators, a community that saw me as someone who mattered. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had a purpose. I was genuinely happy. But that's the side of the story people love to see. The part they don't talk about is what happens behind the camera when you're young, famous, and very, very vulnerable. Because I was underage, my mom insisted she'd handle all my earnings until I turned 18. She told me she was saving it and investing in my future. I trusted her completely. In reality, she gave me about $1,000 a month. A lot for a teenager, sure, but a fraction of what I was making. Instead of saving, she was spending. Furniture, trips, clothes, home renovations, all funded by my grind. Still, I kept going. The channel gave me meaning, until I turned 15, when the darker side of online fame caught up to me. The hate, the criticism, the pressure to always be on, it all grew faster than I could process. My mental health shattered. I developed anorexia and had to be hospitalized. There's no handbook for being a teenage internet star, no safety net, no HR department for burnout. Eventually, I disappeared, stopped posting, stopped interacting. The algorithm moved on, my audience moved on. Nearly a year later, I thought I was ready to return. I had ideas, I wanted to rebuild, but I made a stupid choice. I downloaded pirated Adobe software from a shady site. Within hours, I was hacked. The intruder posted graphic, disturbing content on my channel. YouTube banned me permanently. Years of work vanished overnight. Around the same time, I learned the truth. My mom had burned through nearly all of my earnings. After begging for over a year, I got what little was left, about $50,000, the equivalent of a single peak month. I was too emotionally exhausted to be angry. Then I blew it. Not instantly, but recklessly. A car, bad habits, addictions, anything to numb the shame of falling from everything at 14 to nothing at 19. A bipolar disorder diagnosis explained a lot, but didn't save me. I drank heavily, pushed away people who cared, destroyed friendships, and let my life dissolve into self-sabotage. Now, in my 20s, I'm broke, alone, and feel like I've already wasted my one shot. My mom still insists she did nothing wrong. She says I would have wasted the money anyway. Maybe she's right, maybe not. But I can't stop wondering how different things might have been if she'd helped me instead of helping herself. I think about the kid I used to be, staying up late, editing for hours, obsessed with thumbnails and retention rates. I was hungry back then, not for money or fame, but for connection, for purpose. And for a while, I had it. Peaking young warps your sense of reality. Every job I've worked since feels meaningless. Every attempt to restart feels like a downgrade. It's hard to believe I haven't already done the best thing I'll ever do. But I'm not done, not yet. I'm tired, yes, I'm lost, but I'm still hoping there's a second act out there for me. Maybe life can still surprise me. Maybe I haven't wasted all my potential. If you've been in a hole and climbed out, I want to know how you did it, because I'm still here. And even though I've seen the extreme highs and devastating lows, I have to believe there's still a way to make something of myself before the credits roll. To preface this story, I have to admit, I love driving. Taking long drives for hours with no destination, just me, my music, and the open road. Living in Nebraska, I often take back roads or lonely highways that cut through the countryside to small towns and eventually cities. I usually drive at night because there's far less traffic to worry about. It's been this way since I got my license, and I've never had any trouble or issues, but that's something I can no longer say. I'm a relatively small 22-year-old female, and as I mentioned, I often take these drives completely alone. They help me clear my head when I'm stressed, upset, or overwhelmed. When I lived with my parents, I used these drives to escape the toxicity of their alcoholism. Now that I've moved out and am in a better mental place, I don't feel the urge to just get in my car and drive as much. But the night this happened, I was feeling overwhelmed and anxious with a cluster of personal problems I'd rather not get into. I was restless and irritable around my boyfriend and couldn't focus on anything else. So I decided to take a drive to clear my head. He was understanding, told me to be careful and not be gone too long since it was late. I agreed, kissed him goodbye, and left. I drove around the city for about 30 minutes, but I was still on edge about everything going on in my life. So I drove further north on those familiar, dark, winding one-lane highways. I kept the car steady at 65 miles per hour, taking turns slower in case a deer jumped out. I was just admiring the vast emptiness, snow-covered fields and barren trees. It honestly felt a bit creepy being all alone, no cars in sight, seemingly in the middle of nowhere. The few houses were miles back from the road, dark and lightless, and the dead cornfields were withered and covered in snow. It was like something out of a horror movie, and I half expected to see a ghost pop up in my rearview mirror or someone climbing out from the patches of trees on the horizon. The only light came from my headlights, and even then I strained to see through the inky darkness of the night. By now, it was just after midnight, and I told myself once I reached the familiar roundabout, where I could head to a small town or back toward the city, I would go home. That roundabout was still maybe 15 to 20 minutes away, and besides my imagination picturing the worst, I wasn't really concerned. I was alone, no other motorists to worry about. Wrong. As I rounded another bend, I noticed a vehicle with its hazards flashing about a quarter mile ahead. It was some kind of dark-colored sedan, angled so only part of it was on the shoulder, while the rest jutted into the road, like whoever was driving had to pull over in a hurry but didn't quite manage. The driver's door was flung wide open. As I slowed and angled toward the opposite side to pass, I noticed what looked like blood on the inside of the door. There was no one on the road or in the car, and I was the only motorist in sight. Cell reception here was spotty at best, often non-existent, and sure enough, when I glanced at my phone, I had no bars. Here I was, a lone female on a deserted road at night, pulling up near a vacant vehicle that looked like someone had been attacked inside, all with no cell service. I'm no fool. I've watched countless episodes of Investigation Discovery and Criminal Minds, and read far too many true crime books to know this spelled danger. But a small part of me worried something terrible had happened to whoever was in that vehicle, and I thought I needed to help. These roads don't get much traffic late at night, and temperatures were well below freezing. If someone was hurt or in trouble, there was no one else to help but me. Still, I exercised caution. I kept driving, though slower. As I approached the car, I rolled down my passenger window a bit, shut off the music, and called out, "Hey, anyone there? Are you okay?" No response. I worried the person might be unconscious somewhere, but I wasn't about to get out and search. I told myself I'd call out one last time, and if I didn't hear anything, I'd leave and call for help as soon as I got reception. So again I shouted, "Hey, what happened? Are you all right?" There was silence for a beat.
Then, rustling in the shadows of the trees, followed by a gruff voice saying, "Yeah." Relief washed over me, and I was about to respond or maybe even stop and get out when I noticed three things nearly simultaneously. As I inched past the front of the sedan, I saw there was no damage to the hood or anywhere else on the car, which was strange given the blood on the door. Then, in my rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of someone coming out from behind the sedan, heading straight toward my car at speed. The person had no blood on them, nor any signs of injury. They wore a mask, not a face mask or ski mask, but one of those creepy masks from the Purge movies. In their hand was something long and shaped like a tire iron or crowbar. You don't need me to tell you what happened next. I slammed on the gas and drove like hell. My heart thundered in my chest, my entire body shaking. The window was still down, music off, so I could clearly hear a man shouting at me, though I couldn't understand what he was saying. All I knew was I had to get out of there immediately. I stole one last look in my rearview mirror to see if they were getting into the car to follow me or had stopped. The man with the weapon stood in the middle of the road watching me. Just before I looked away, a second man emerged from the trees, also wearing one of those terrifying masks. I probably broke every speed law that night, desperate to get as far away as possible. When I reached the roundabout, I turned toward town and parked in a Walmart lot, where thankfully some workers were still closing up shop. There I completely broke down, sobbing hysterically until I could pull myself together. I called a friend who's a police officer, told him what happened, and asked what to do. He was concerned, asked if I was safe, if I was being followed. Since it was outside city limits, he couldn't do much himself, but he contacted local police and the sheriff's department, who said they'd take my statement and check the area. While waiting for them, I called my boyfriend through sobs and panic, told him what happened. He was understandably freaked out and wanted me to come home immediately or to come get me himself. I told him the police were on their way and I was okay. I stayed on the phone with them until I saw the familiar blue and red lights in my rearview mirror. I gave the police my statement and they assured me they'd return to the spot to look for those men. Without dashcam footage or a description beyond a dark-colored car and two masked men, I wasn't hopeful.
I'm going to start this with a trigger warning. This story involves violence, drug use, and even some animal abuse. So don't say I didn't warn you. I've been needing to get this off my chest for a long time. What happened between October 2017 and early 2019 has weighed heavily on me. First, a little backstory to give some context. I graduated high school in 2016. At the time, I wasn't working, not because I wasn't trying, but because nothing really panned out. I had a few interviews, but they led nowhere. Honestly, I was too anxious to apply anywhere, even local supermarkets, since most of the people who bullied me in school worked there. The thought of seeing them every day made me shut down. So I stuck close to the few friends I had. I wasn't very social in school. I put most of my energy into a long-term relationship. When we broke up near graduation, I realized I didn't really have anyone left, except one person, Sam. Sam was my best friend throughout school. He had a good job, a supportive family, money, and a decent group of friends. My parents liked him and thought he was a good influence on me. He didn't drink or do drugs, and I really looked up to him. So when Sam asked me to move in with him, I didn't hesitate. He found a rental through a family friend, a small real estate agency. It was overpriced and run down, but we didn't know better. Our parents were eager to have us out of the house, his family figured he was doing well enough to live independently, and my stepdad was tired of supporting me while I wasn't working.
We ended up moving in with one of Sam's childhood friends. Let's call him Blake. I'd never met Blake before, and he was hardly around because he worked a lot and spent most weekends dirt biking. Things were fine for a while until the first major blow-up. One night, Blake came home around 2:30 a.m. to find two random teenagers hooking up on his bed. Apparently, Sam had let them stay without telling Blake. Blake packed up and left the next day, and as far as I know, Sam and Blake never spoke again. Now on to the real story. By February 2018, I'd finally gotten a job through my dad and was enjoying the routine of working and being out of the house. But Sam started acting off. He wasn't leaving for work before me like he used to. He was moody, snappy, and would leave at all hours without saying where he was going. I'm nobody's parent, but it would have been nice to know. Turns out he was cheating on his girlfriend with a girl from our high school. Around this time, when Sam was in a bad mood, he'd start making threats, saying he'd throw all my stuff out if I didn't do exactly what he asked, clean the house, run errands, whatever he felt like. I didn't own much, just a mattress and my desktop, but I never pushed back. I kept my head down. Things got weirder. He started stealing my clothes, even though they didn't fit, then handed me his shirts like some weird exchange. It was like he needed to control even the littlest things. He stopped cooking, lived off fast food, using a gas credit card his dad gave him. 2 meals a day until his dad cut him off. Then it was McDonald's and iced coffee every night. At first, I figured whatever he did wasn't my business, but when he couldn't pay rent or bills and asked me to cover, I refused. He guilt-tripped me and blocked my room. I was anxious from how angry and aggressive he'd become, so I gave in a lot, and it hurt me financially. Eventually, Sam stopped working altogether. One day, he told me work let him go early and they'd call if they needed him. I told him that's not how jobs work, and we argued. It took him 10 weeks to call back, only to find out they'd marked him as having abandoned the position. Despite all this, I tried to support him like he'd supported me during my rough patch. But instead of appreciation, he lashed out, yelling, telling me I had a problem with always being right in the most venomous way. With all his free time, he invited that girl from high school over constantly. Told me to keep it secret from his girlfriend, but I couldn't. I hardly saw the girl myself, but did my best to avoid the house. Later, I found out she was there nearly every day, sometimes multiple times. That's when Sam started bringing pets in. His family gave him a bird, he bought a dog named Sparta, then a kitten for that girl named Skittles. The kitten eventually ran away, so he bought another with the same name. What he did to that kitten still makes me sick. When the girl or I weren't home, he locked the cat in the closet and only fed it when he remembered. I tried feeding her when he wasn't around, but one day he caught me. He slammed me into the wall, screamed that I was poisoning his animals, and hit me hard before walking off. Another day, the bird was gone. Sam wasn't home, but later he told me the bird had fallen in its cage and broken its neck. That was the first time I truly panicked. This wasn't just someone sad or struggling, something was very wrong. Later that night, Sam came home carrying a shoebox. I thought he was finally going to bury the bird. But it wasn't the bird inside, it was the kitten. According to Sam, she broke her neck jumping around in the closet. I'll never forget how he said it. No sadness, no anger, just emptiness. He locked himself in his room, and I didn't see him for nearly a week. Then came the final straw. One late night after working overtime, I came home to find Sam and that girl doing coke in the living room. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. By then, Sam was unrecognizable.
Over 6 months, he screamed at me, stole from me, assaulted me, and made me feel like everything bad, including the deaths of the bird and cat, was my fault. That night, I heard him bragging, lying, mocking me, using every bit of high school nostalgia to impress the girl. The next day, I told Sam's girlfriend everything. I took Sparta because he was malnourished and abused, even though I'd been secretly feeding him. I contacted the SPCA, sent photos of the house, and reported the abuse. I timed it with a scheduled house inspection so someone else would be there if Sam lost it. I thought it was a solid plan. That day, a car pulled up in front of the house. I immediately thought it was the landlord. But it wasn't. As I stepped out into the hallway, I came face to face with Sam, shirtless, reeking of weed and alcohol, holding a long kitchen knife. He slammed me against the wall, screaming. I shook and couldn't get words out. When I told him where I took Sparta, he screamed, choked me, and ran the flat side of the knife down my arm. Everything blurred. I started to black out. He screamed that I betrayed him, that it was my fault his girlfriend left him. He pressed the knife near my neck. I whispered, "My friends can hear you." He hesitated, then let go. I ran to my car and didn't look back. I spent a few days at my parents' place, too scared to explain. They called me jumpy. I said I just missed them. Sam messaged me asking to talk. I agreed. We met in public. He said he was moving back with his parents because he couldn't support himself and the house had too many bad memories. That was August 2018. I haven't seen him since. After I told mutual friends what happened, people from our old school cut ties with him completely. I filed a police report, but didn't press charges, couldn't afford it. At least our last incident was documented. After he left, I moved back into the house alone. He left everything except his PS4, headphones, and TV. I was living alone where my best friend almost killed me. I stopped talking to friends. Nightmares began. The aftermath through late 2018 and early 2019 was just as dark, maybe darker. Isolation, guilt over the animals, trauma from everything I saw, it stayed with me. I still have photos of the house and Sparta. I can share them if anyone doubts. In late 2019, I met my current girlfriend. She's incredible. We just bought a house and are moving in 2 weeks. Right now, we're staying with my parents, but the move has brought back all these memories. I haven't seen Sam in over 6 years, but I'm still scared of him, still cautious. Telling this story feels like a step forward, like I'm finally closing that dark chapter of my life.